a lot of years, who's been a real fighter for the working families, and we really appreciate him coming here today. He currently serves on the cabinet with President Obama and was previously the U.S. Attorney General. And so again,
well, not quite.
Not quite.
Assistant.
So, right. So I don't want folks who might be writing about this.
Sorry. So please join me, and I want to give you on behalf
All right.
of AFSCME our Hillary
Excellent.
for AFSCME t-shirts.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, let me, as long as I'm here, guys, let's
All right, there we go.
Here we go. Okay, thanks for your gracious introduction. Give me 5 seconds here, and we'll get going. All right, how am I looking?
All right.
Here we go.
Getting better.
Wow, all right.
They're Americanizing you.
Go
That's
Green!
right, all right. I'm for a
It's not
green
easy
society.
being green, you know.
It's not easy. That's what Kermit told me. Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, thanks a lot. Hey, this fits perfectly.
Yeah.
I like it. All right. Hey, thanks for having me. I have the privilege of working, with the president now. As you said, I decided to take a couple days off on my own time, and I actually went out to New Hampshire on Sunday, and then I was here yesterday and today in Nevada because we have an incredible opportunity on the 20th of February here in Nevada to send a remarkable message to America about the power of labor to help elect the next president of the United States, Hillary Clinton. And I know we're going to do that. You look at yesterday in Iowa and the victory that Secretary Clinton had. And you know what? It is an absolutely accurate statement to say that labor was a difference maker. She won union households by 9%. And we know that it was a close election yesterday. And we also know that, this coming in about a week or so, we're going to obviously see New Hampshire. And as you know, she's out there today, and she's going to fight for every vote. And in New Hampshire, roughly half the folks make up their mind in the last week or so. And I saw the volunteers out there, and they inspired me like they do here. And I got a couple calls in the last few days from folks who were in Iowa telling me, hey, and I said to you walking in, got a text from a friend saying, hey, just said hello to Lee Saunders. He was walking around with another former AFSCME member named Tom Vilsack in Iowa. And when I was in Iowa with Secretary Clinton, we had a wonderful night in Des Moines with a bunch of folks from labor. And you see, I grew up in Buffalo, New York, so when I sit here with y'all, I feel like I'm at home. Because, first of all, thank you for bringing us the weekend, okay? And thank you for bringing us the middle class. And I firmly believe that when unions succeed, America succeeds. And Hillary's relationships with labor are long and deep. And she understands that when unions succeed, America succeeds, and when unions succeed, the middle class succeeds. And we spoke, I remember a few months ago, about these frontal assaults on the labor movement. I went to the oral argument recently in the Supreme Court in the Friedrichs case, and you know who bankrolled that case? That was the Koch brothers. That's been documented. And this is about the thing about it is, my parents taught me that if you blow out your neighbor's candle, it doesn't make your candle shine any brighter. And what they're trying to do in this case is to say, I don't have a pension. So the cure to that is I want to make sure you don't have a pension, and you don't have a pension, and you don't have a pension. Instead of saying, why don't we all work together to build shared prosperity? And that's what Hillary is about. And that's why I'm so excited to be involved in her campaign. And when you go out and do your calling and your door knocking, and people say, why am I caucusing for Hillary? One thing I'd suggest that you say is something I've learned in life, which is when I'm trying to figure out somebody's, moral compass, North Star, I often look at what they did before anybody was looking at them, before they were in the spotlight. And when she graduated from Yale Law School, most of her colleagues went to Wall Street, made big money. that was the glide path. I had the privilege of going to Harvard Law School, and most of my classmates went and made big money. And my wife works with homeless people, and I've been in public service, and I feel like the richest man on the face of the earth, except when it comes to paying the bills. But the non-monetary rewards have been priceless. And that's exactly what she did. And I know there's a lot of teachers in this room and other educators. And when I was in local government, we used to do a lot of work on behalf of kids with disabilities. And the Individuals with Disability in Education Act is one of the most important pieces of legislation to help kids with disabilities. And she helped bring that about. And she did that, bless you, bless all of you. She did that because she was door knocking, asking the question, what can we do to help so many kids who don't have access to equal educational opportunity? And I was chatting with her a couple months ago, and I was frankly kind of, I was probably more ranting than chatting, because I was talking about a frustration of my current job. We do a lot of work on behalf of farm workers. And the laws to protect farm workers are inadequate. We need to strengthen those laws. And as I was explaining to her, because she was talking about, what else can we be doing for farm workers in this country? And when I was explaining this to her, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
After I spoke about it, she said, when we were trying to organize and assist farm workers, whatever it was, 30, 40 years ago, we were running into a lot of the same problems. And I said to myself, actually I said to her, I had no idea that you had done that. But this was something she did, before the spotlight was on her. My wife was a legal aid lawyer for many years, and now she does legal aid work for a different nonprofit. And legal aid lawyers, if you ask what they do for a living, they fight the establishment because they're standing up for folks who are really vulnerable. And so, those sorts of windows into her moral compass are why I am so passionate. And the second reason I'm so passionate about her candidacy is because I feel like I have a pretty good sense of what it means to be a successful progressive. And part of the reason I feel that way is because I learned from one of the most successful progressive leaders in the history of this country, a guy named Ted Kennedy. And Ted Kennedy taught me the 4 P's: progressive, passionate, persistent, and pragmatic. And what he taught me was, idealism and pragmatism are not mutually exclusive. And, I remember when we were fighting for the increase in the minimum wage in 1996, Newt Gingrich was Speaker in the House. This is the aftermath of the Contract on America. And, he didn't get every, bit that he wanted, but he understood that, you sometimes you can't get everything, so you bank it, and you come back the next day and you get more. By the way, every piece of civil rights legislation that's been passed in the 20th century, we didn't get everything. So you bank it, you come back, you get more. Same thing in the labor context. And that's exactly what Hillary did. She fought the healthcare industry. That was the first thing she did when she was First Lady. We all remember that. It didn't work, but it didn't deter her. And she worked later on with Senator Kennedy and a guy named Warren Hatch and others to pass the Children's Health Insurance Program, which is one of the most critically important pieces of legislation, helping millions of children across America. And that's what it's about. I want people to fight for me, and I appreciate the fighters. But you know what? It's not just, the key to being progressive isn't simply to fight. You gotta know how to win the fight. And you gotta know when it is. And you gotta understand what Ben Franklin understood, which is that principled compromise is not a dirty word. And that's where I see her. And the other thing that really just jumps off the table at me is something that's a function of a privilege I've had now for 2.5 years or so. And that is the privilege in my current job of seeing presidential governance from a front row seat. It is an unmitigated privilege to serve as your labor secretary. And I watch the president in action with regularity. That is the hardest job in the world. That is the quintessential multitasking job. Except that every task you do has incredibly important consequences for our nation and sometimes for our planet. And so there's some days when a meeting is delayed because he's on the phone with Putin talking about Ukraine, or other meetings about the Ebola crisis, or other meetings about fixing websites, or other meetings about responding to the unexpected. My father used to say in his very broken English, Dole, he called me Tom, T-O-M-E, Dole, you always have to count on the unexpected, he would say. And you know what? That's the essence of being the President of the United States. And you know, when I think about Hillary Clinton, I mean, there is nobody, and you know, President basically said this last week when he said, there's no non-sitting vice president who's run for president who has had, more relevant experience and opportunity than Hillary Clinton. And he's right. And there's not a 6-month apprenticeship period when you become president. You start right away. And I can't think of someone who is better situated to start right away. And so I'm really excited about February 20th. And what's really important about February 20th is the union density in this state provides you with a unique opportunity, really to be effectively the first state in the union where organized labor, and 2014 in Nevada was not the best year for labor. And your last session, I don't need to remind you of the consequences of not being successful. Steve Horsford was the guy I worked with when he was in Congress, and I wish he were still there. That was a preventable loss, in my judgment. And we got to go to school on that. And the way to go to school on that is to be organized. Organized labor helped deliver Iowa for Hillary, and I am certain that organized labor is going to deliver a resounding victory for Hillary on February 20th here in Nevada. And that is going to be a very important message to this nation, that the Clinton coalition, it's a coalition of remarkable people, working folks, all like you, union members, business leaders, communities of color, white communities, progressives who understand that, progressives like to make progress and get things done. People who understand where we were, where we are, and where we need to go. And you need to remind folks, because there's amnesia on the Republican side of where we were. We lost 2 million plus jobs the 3 months before this president took over. And now we've seen 70 months in a row of private sector job growth to the tune of 14.1 million jobs. We had the best year last year, ever, in the auto industry. Ever, okay? Remember who wanted to let them die? Got to remind them of that. And by the way, I appreciate Mitch McConnell. Why do I appreciate Mitch McConnell? Because Mitch McConnell was honest year one. He said, you know what? I want to make sure Barack Obama is a one-term president. Oh. And so I appreciate his candor. And that's what makes what we've accomplished all the more remarkable. Because it was against a backdrop of people who weren't concerned about governance. They weren't concerned about the American people. They allowed politics and ideology to trump everything. We got to get out the vote on February 20th. And now I'm putting my civil rights lawyer hat on. Because, in the Civil Rights Division, one of the most important things I got to work on was going into states where these horrific voter ID laws were passed. And there was one and only one purpose in these laws, which was to make it harder for eligible people, black and brown primarily, to vote. They're hoping that minority communities sit home. They're hoping that union families are discouraged. We're just getting our butts kicked. So, let's just go and cower in a corner and not show up. But you know what? That's not the union movement in this room. That's not the union movement in America. That's not your boss, and I spent a lot of time with your boss. That's not Lee Saunders. As Lee Saunders has said, you know what? We're either going to have a seat at the table or we're going to be on the menu. And you know what? We're not going to be on the menu.